Hello, everyone. Welcome to Healing with the Mythic Archetypes. And we're going to open up this channel. And I'm really feeling called to create a safe space for me to listen and hold that space depending on what they're going through. So, thank you, everyone, for joining right now or later. And on TikTok as well. I thank everyone for joining. And I want to create this safe space so anyone wants to ask questions or anyone wants to come on and share a little bit about what's going on for them, and we can pull some tarot and we can read astrology as well. And so really feeling called to hold that space for anyone that feels like they need that, feels like they're ready to be seen. And so I just want to thank everyone for coming on. Yes, I am streaming on YouTube. And first, I want to just ask about the Pisces new moon and how everyone's feeling with the shifts into the water element, because we are diving so deep into the water element. And right now, as the spring is blooming and there's flowers, and I know so many different parts of the world, it's still snowing, it's still feeling like deep winter. Just remember that there's strength that's happening within this season. There's so much strength happening in this season. And so we can see that. And thank you everyone for joining. Hello, hello. I am streaming on YouTube at I am Lin Love. If anyone wants to come on and share any questions or share about their astrology or share their story, this is a safe space for me to listen to you and for others to connect with your story as well. So just holding that space for each other so we can rise. Today I got this bag at the store and it says, "We rise by lifting each other up." We rise by lifting each other up. And I don't know if it's just my Leo, but my Leo, that fire, that earth element, that fire and earth element wants to be of service, wants to hold that space for people, because there's so much that is happening. There's so much that is happening and changing for people. And so I want to create this safe space. And if anyone wants to come on and share a story or share a little bit of what they're going through. If anyone wants to share a question, I'm going to pull some tarot. I'm going to talk a little bit about astrology. We can even pull up other people's charts as well. But this is going to be talking about healing the mythic archetypes of our life. And these mythic archetypes are constantly showing up in the stories, in the constant behaviors. And know that this is a consecrated space with love, with compassion, with empathy. And it is through rising and uplifting each other in that rising. It's so beautiful to be able to have this space. And I want to invite anyone, if anyone wants to come on to the YouTube live as well. I'm going to be pulling tarot. I'm going to be talking about astrology as well. So yes, thank you. I'm seeing some comments in the chat. If you want to share with me where you are tuning in from, yes, I'd be happy to shout you out. Yes, love your voice. Thank you so much. Yes. So amazing. Thank you, everyone has been tuning in as well. I'm also live on YouTube. If you want to tune with me on YouTube at I am Lin Love. And so I was talking about the water element in Chinese medicine. The water element rules the kidneys, the urinary bladder, and it rules our deepest strength, our deepest determination to create something, to create. And I love the water element because did you know that water is the only element that can be in 3 forms? It can be frozen, it can be in liquid form, and it can also be in mist. So water has this mystical ability transforming and letting go of old structures and just really flowing into different parts. And we can learn so much about water in this element in this season. Hello, from share where you are coming from. That would be amazing. So, yes, talking about the water element. The water element can be in 3 different forms. And so I just want us to give some homage to the water because we are entering into Pisces season. And Pisces season is a mutable water element, meaning that it is, if you were to think about the different forms of water, you are thinking as if it was mist. And so with this mist, that means that we can connect with greater parts of ourselves and others by being mutable, by being flexible, by being able to say, this other person is another reflection of me. And whatever I do, energy wants us to actually understand that lesson. It wants us to actually understand that when we are in service and we are kind and we are moving forth with empathy with another person, this is to say that we are actually tapping into the highest virtues of Pisces. So right now, as we entered into Pisces with the new moon yesterday, that happened at 11 p.m. Pacific time, what was alive during this time collectively? And I just invite you all to share if there's anything that arose in you in the new moon energy. The new moon energy is also when there is no light being illuminated from the moon. It is, in fact, the darkest night, the darkest point of the night, the darkest point of the month as well. And in this time, we can actually tune in deeper to our inner needs, our inner desires, the things that we want to plant and grow. The new moon energy is amazing for that as well. I read a book called The New Moon Astrology by Jan Spiller. And in this book, she actually talks about using the new moon energy super intentionally. And what that means is we get to actually make a wish, set an intention, plant a seed on the new moon. And when we get to cultivate that seed and add water and nourishment and sun and put forth our energy towards creating that thing with effort and non-effort, the balance of both, then we can create magic. We can actually bring in that thing. And some of us may call it manifestation. And really, it's called commitment to your path, commitment to what you truly desire, and commitment to your heart desires. And this is a really special moment. So I want to invite anyone, if anyone has a question, anyone has a reflection on what occurred for them during the Pisces new moon yesterday, either yesterday or today, just sharing a little bit about what has happened for you. And, if anything is resonating about the water element as well, sharing that. So I'm just going to grab a little tea. I know for me, there was like a deep unraveling of just like there was just like a deep unraveling about my past and really about, you know, the water element as well contains our emotions. It contains memories. So, in fact, the water element is going to contain the memory, not only us, but the people before us and our ancestors as well. So, for me, going into Pisces and coming up into this time was very much about rewriting the stories from my ancestors, rewriting what has happened to me in the past and bringing that into the now. And how can we shift that? How can I shift that and transform and be like water so that way I can be in different forms and act like different archetypes? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when we're talking about healing the mythic archetypes, everything is actually reflected. Everything is actually reflected in these archetypes. So sometimes we might resonate with a specific archetype, or we might resonate with a certain element, or we might resonate with a certain astrology sign, and we're like, wait, but that's not my actual sun sign. But in fact, we hold all of the archetypes within us. So remembering that we hold all those archetypes within us. We hold all of the archetypes within us. So it's a really powerful reminder that water, Pisces season, and tuning into the mutable water element, this is in fact teaching us that all of the archetypes are reflections of us. We are all actually a reflection of the one energy that is creating, moving, changing, shifting all things. And in Chinese medicine, we would say this is qi. This is actually qi that's animating, creating, existing in all things, in all forms. And at the same time, we have to understand that healing these archetypes means to first become aware of what the archetype is. And so sometimes when I'm using Chinese medicine to help somebody, I'm using the archetypes and the five elements to help somebody. First, we have to start with, okay, well, what's the primary emotion that you're experiencing on a daily basis? What is your inner desire? And what path are you being directed on? What foods do you have tendencies to eat? What are the things that your heart deeply desires? Because all these different questions can actually help me narrow down what the mythic archetype is in terms of your element. And when we're also thinking about astrology, we can ask a person questions, and we can look at their birth chart and say, well, you have a stellium in Aquarius, so this is what that means. This is what that means for this archetype, and this is the highest point of that archetype, but this is also the shadow aspect of that archetype. Can you see both? And that knowledge becomes wisdom that we can use and move forward into. So it's really powerful work when you're healing the archetypes. And when we're talking about tarot, so tarot is going to be the third modality that I'm here to share and to bring to this space. Tarot is really a set of archetypes as well. Archetypal energies that are depicted in ways and forms and images. And it is up to the reader, the person that's actually interpreting the cards, to understand the archetypes, to understand that each one of these images and each one of these cards are conveying a mythic archetype that the person that's getting read is actually healing from. For example, The other day I was pulling tarot. I was going through some stuff and I was just like, man, I'm really going through it. I'm really unraveling some like deep, deep patterns and becoming conscious of things that I wasn't aware of before. I pulled some tarot. I was like, okay, I'm gonna start pulling tarot. And it's funny because I was so into tarot. I was such an avid user of tarot. And then I just like completely stopped. And now I'm like totally immersed in it again and just kind of dabbling in it a little bit more lately and just feeling called to share with people and to help people with this medicine, with healing the archetypes, healing the mythic archetypes of each person's life. And so when talking about my own mythic archetype, I pulled cards, some tarot cards, and I was like, okay, what did I get? I got the Tower, which is one mythic story, one mythic archetype that is talking about actually burning down, breaking down the structures that do not work for you, and actually being that fertile ground so new things can come through. So new things can come through. I was like, oof, that is spot on. That like hits deep, deep there. And actually, mostly my solar plexus, because I was like, yeah, it's true. Like these structures and these patterns that I'm giving so much of my intention to, I'm giving my attention to it, I'm giving my power to it. And so when we do that, it in fact takes our power away. And when we can break away from those patterns and those things that don't serve us, in fact, it gives us more power when we do so. Like, have you ever cleaned out a cabinet or cleaned out your closet or cleaned your car, for example, and you're like, oh, I just feel so much better after clearing that space, cleaning out the dust bunnies, like taking all the dirt out and just like having clean space, like having space to put things and not feel like they're getting dirty or feel like they're, like you're confused if it's dirty or not dirty or, that creates debris in your mental space. And so when we can be really clear about our patterns and the things that we're doing, it's really, really important. And that's a part of also healing the mythic archetype as well. So, is any of this, I'm just going to tune in with all of the listeners on TikTok here. Is anyone resonating with this? Is anyone receiving any gems, any thoughts, perceptions, perspectives, anything that they are tuning into that's really resonating with them? Please share in the comments. I would love to hear. And please share also where you're coming from as well. I would love to just know where you're tuning in from. Yeah. And thank you all for being here. And so, at the same time, to go back to the story about me pulling tarot and understanding the mythic archetypes that are being presented here. When we are pulling tarot, and for example, if I pull out the star in tarot, the star tarot in tarot traditionally is actually the card that represents Aquarius as well. It is related to Aquarius. But what's happening with the star, and I believe I actually have, I pulled it pretty recently. Actually pulled it today. But when you think about the star and you receive that, it's really a strong omen, a really strong message that's saying, okay, you are ready. You're supported, you are guided, you are loved. Remember that. Remember that you have all the gifts that are here to support you. You are supported by so many people behind you. And sometimes we forget that. when we're healing the mythic archetypes, it can be sudden, right? Some of the awakenings that we might experience when we're doing tarot, when we're doing astrology, when we're talking about the five elements in terms of Chinese medicine, we sometimes get these really sudden awakenings. And once an awakening happens, it can't go back, right? That awakening is forever and it's going to change you in a really beautiful way, or maybe a not so beautiful way. But again, that is life, that is the flow of life. And so when we tune into tarot, when we tune into astrology, for example, we get to actually come into communion with these tools, but then tune into a higher aspect of ourselves. And so this is all about understanding the yin and the yang, right? Yin is going to represent the feminine energy. We're not talking about gender, but we're talking about energy and energetics. Yin is going to represent the yin energy, meaning the dark side of the mountain. It's going to be representing kind of the low dips and also our sovereign power and the Shakti force that creates and moves things. Then we also have the yang aspect, which is the masculine energy. The masculine energy is going to be, yes, it's going to be that force that creates the spaciousness for things to come through. It's going to create the spaciousness for us to move in our feminine form and energy. And so when we're looking at these archetypes and healing the mythic archetypes, we also have to understand that when we're healing the mythic archetypes, we're healing this inner conflict between the yin and the yang. We're healing this inner conflict that's happening always within us. And it's giving perspective. It's giving perspective to these stories that are playing out in our life. So I'm going to do a quick pull for the Pisces season with tarot. I'm using kind of the traditional tarot deck by Alistair. And I have these really mini cards, which I love to take with me traveling. And I have done so many readings with this deck and have just shared so much wisdom from that as well. So we're going to do a little bit of a healing the mythic archetypes of the season, in Pisces season, and we're going to do it in a collective way. So we're going to talk about these mythic archetypes, and if things don't resonate with you, then it's okay. Take what resonates and leave what doesn't. It's a really important part of our journey to be discerning about information, especially nowadays when you can just tune in to everything and anyone and anywhere, right? It's crazy how much information is being passed around and shared and being navigated through this space. So just honoring that and honoring everyone else that has been here with me in this digital space as we start to do a reading on, and it's interesting, I just got the tarot card, the Tower, which I was just talking about as well. And the Tower, so maybe this wants to come through about Pisces season, because I received the tarot, the Tower card when I was doing a reading for myself the other day. And this card, actually, sometimes people can receive messages through tarot or through astrology or through even talking about the elements and say, oh, wait, that feels like a negative archetype. Like, that doesn't feel like it's good for me, or this looks like a bad card, right? There's no good or bad cards. There's no good or bad placements within astrology. It is just challenges that are here to help you rise and help you lift and empower you to grow even deeper into your own virtue and your character. So just putting that reminder out there that we have the strength and we have so much that comes to us. One meditation that I've been doing lately is I've been doing a lot of qigong, and one of the qigong meditations that I've been doing that I learned from one of my teachers is embracing the tree. And what embracing the tree is you're essentially like in Wuji stance, and you are holding your field, you're holding your energetic field, and you're cultivating chi, but at the same time, you're releasing that chi. You're releasing the effort to create and cultivate chi. And so by doing this, you cultivate this strength in that you're okay with change, you're okay with things happening, you're okay with things coming and going. And so it's really beautiful to do that meditation because it reminds me that, oh yeah, challenges are going to come. The tree stands firmly in its ground, and when the wind when the wind comes, when challenges come, when people come into our life and, you know, there's things that happen, right? Because things are always going to happen. Life is always going to happen. But when that does happen, we are in fact being tested of our strength. This is a challenge. This is a test. This is something in our energetic field, in our body, in our mind, in our spirit, in our emotional realm that is actually asking to be acknowledged and to be present with and to be aware. The other day, I posted a TikTok video about healing, and healing comes through the intention. It could be intention of forgiveness, intention of compassion. It can be intention of, wanting to bring in prosperity, plus the awareness of things, the conscious and unconscious patternings that are creating that situation in your life. And then it takes presence. When you're fully and deeply immersed and present with something in your life, in fact, so much comes with that. And nature teaches us that. Nature teaches us that we don't have to force and we don't have to be this image that we create for ourselves. And in fact, we can flow again, like the water element. Yes, tuning into the water element here very strongly, especially as we are moving through winter time into spring on the northern hemisphere. And so being able to flow like water when these challenges come up. So in that embracing the tree meditation, it's really about standing firm in your ground. And it's about saying, I'm rooted in my center, in my core, in my strength. And yes, the wind may blow and challenges may come and relationships happen. Things happen. As Marie Forleo says, life taxes happen, right? You stay firm in your strength. You stay firm in your grounding. You stay firm in that core. How powerful is that when you can stay so firm in your core, in your value, in your morality, and support yourself through challenges in your life. Yes, we also do need support systems, but we can be our number one support system. We can be that resonant self. We can tune into our higher selves in order to help ourselves during really difficult times. And so, coming back into the Tower card, this archetype came through for me because I was like moving through a lot of patterns and a lot of thinking about, oh wow, I'm doing this kind of unconsciously and I'm not, why am I doing this? And there's like certain habit patterns that I've been having for a long time that I'm like, oh yeah, these things won't serve me. And so I started realizing that, okay, it's time. It's time to let these things go. It's time to be radically honest. And when I'm radically honest, I can then take the steps to accept myself. And so I did so. And it's not easy. Definitely, it's not easy to do that. It's not easy to accept yourself for these habit patterns that you've had for a long time. And so I was sitting with that. I was sitting with that heaviness. And I was saying, okay, well, I'm experiencing a lot of shifting. And so when I pulled this card, the Tower, I realized, okay, I understand what's going on now. I understand that I'm being asked to look at what has been created in my life, what I am creating through my choices, through my behavior, through my patterns, and I'm being asked to rewrite, to recreate, to burn down the structures and the patterns and the habits and the things I'm doing for so long that I know that aren't good for me. And it's time to let those things fall away and to create fertile ground for things to grow. So if you look, so I'm showing TikTok right now, the Tower card, and then I'm also showing YouTube Live, the Tower card. If you look at the Tower card, you're going to see a tower and you're going to see people jumping off the tower. You're going to see the tower also burning down. Okay. Oftentimes, this can be seen as a really scary card. It's like, oh, wait, whoa, there's like a lot going on there. That looks pretty scary, looks pretty morbid. It's true. Sometimes life itself is a very challenging and intense experience. And so, like fire, so water and fire in Chinese medicine have this really, really beautiful relationship as well. Without water, you would have no fire. Without fire, you wouldn't have any water. They are like yin and yang to each other. And yin and yang exist because of one another. They are actually interdependent of each other. And they're constantly turning in the cycle of each other as well. And so this is actually representing, okay, it's time to use that inner fire to burn down any structures that have not been serving you. And that hit home for me. I was like, yep, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And so it took a lot of being honest with myself. It took a lot of journaling. It took a lot of, just like inner reflection and contemplation to just come back to my core, come back to my true self. And what does my true self want? And so these tools, tarot, astrology, the 5 elements, are amazing at helping us come back to our true self, helping us heal these mythic stories and these archetypes that we're experiencing. So, this archetype in the story is about holding on to a structure that no longer serves and needing to break it down, right? That's a mythic story that's playing out in life. And it's interesting because you have, about 50 cards here, each depicting a certain energy that's happening in the life. And you have 12 signs, 12 astrology signs, right? You have 5 elements. There's different systems that we can actually use to understand what is happening in our life. There's human design, there's so many things out there. And so when we use these different tools to help understand what our mythic story is, we begin to create awareness of what is happening. And we get to say, okay, do I want to continue or do I want to stop? So it's really powerful when I work with clients and I work with them and I look at their astrology and I say, okay, well, what's happening right now? They're like, well, this is happening and something's happening in my relationship. And I'm like, oh, you have Saturn in the 7th house, which means you may have a lot of karmic lessons around relationship. And so this is what that means, and this is how it can manifest. And also, these are the things that Saturn wants you to understand because there's no good or bad planet. There's no good or bad sign. It's just understanding what the archetypes want us to understand, what they want us to know. And so when we have the higher frequency of the archetypes, we have the lower frequency of the archetypes that are oftentimes rooted in that fear, that are oftentimes rooted in that feeling stuck, feeling not wanting to. Really, it's fear. Just feeling that fear and being stuck because of that fear. And so it's easy to stay in that. And I also feel like this card as well, and I'm going to move on and pull some more cards for the Pisces season. But this card as well is very much about, it's easy to get stuck, right? It's easy to be one of these people. Well, maybe not, but in a situation that applies to our own life, sometimes it's easy to stay connected or stay in routine with the things that don't serve us. And so those habit patterns can be really destructive if they're not serving us. This card is talking all about that. And when we talk about Pisces season and that virtue, I did talk about this earlier in the live. But when we talk about Pisces season and its virtue, it's about embracing the oneness and the unity and embracing that thing that brings you closer to what your heart desires. It's about that thing that helps you do that, and also that innately brings you into service for other people or for your community or for yourself or for whatever you want to create, right? Maybe it's you're creating just for the sake of creating, and that in itself is such a beautiful journey. And so when we're talking about the Pisces season, those are the highest kind of archetypes of Pisces, when they're being able to hold and see all these energies, right? Because Pisces are sometimes a little bit of the energetic sponges. They take on what's happening. They can kind of tell what's happening with this person and that person. They can tune into the energy of the room very easily. They're very creative and very willing to flow like water. Again, they are the mutable water. So they are not afraid of letting go of this role and moving into that one, being the healer, but then again, like later in the day, being the artist, and then coming and being, the cook, right? And so Pisces season is about unity. It's about being so deeply immersed in the present moment that you become one with whatever is happening. That is a very strong manifestation of Pisces. And so I'm going to pull some other cards for Pisces as well. And anyone that is tuning in on TikTok, please share anything that you've been receiving as well through this. Okay, so I'm feeling like pulling 3 cards. Okay. Ooh, okay, got some good cards here. Ooh, yes. Okay. So the cards that I got for Pisces season is the Queen of Swords. It's going to be this card. You can see this queen on her throne with a sword. The swords is going to represent our mind and our intellect. Then I also got the Four of Cups, and it really depicts this picture of a man who is sitting under a tree that's kind of contemplating life and contemplating, what's happening. And then you have the Ace of Wands here. The Ace of Wands, the wands are going to represent the fire element. And what that also means is our spirit. So it's amazing because a lot of these modalities, the 5 elements, astrology, tarot, they all overlap. They're all kind of saying very similar things. So in this card, you're getting the Ace of Wands. This is probably going to be, well, this card and then also the Queen of Swords is going to be really powerful. But it's saying you're being handed this wisdom that's only specifically meant for your spirit, for your soul, for your incarnation. And so it is about being discerning. The Queen of Swords is about staying in your power, being in receipt of your power, and also remembering that you can use your logical mind to have discernment of what is not yours and what is yours. The Queen of Swords teaches us a lot about understanding the seat of our power, her being in her seat, right? And then also using the sword to cut away anything that does not serve, right? And so that's a lot of what is happening with the Tower as well, right? I would say the Tower is going to be the kind of bigger premise of what's happening in Pisces season. Also, we are entering into Saturn. Saturn is entering into Pisces. I believe March 7th, which is next week. And Saturn is going to be like that discipliner. It's going to be the great teacher that's going to say, hey, all these things have been kind of loose ends and really challenging in these ways. We're going to be awakening. We're going to be awakening to loosening, right? Loosening up these kind of tight restrictions and these things that have happened in the last few years. And so there's a lot of discernment that needs to happen in this year. It's a lot of understanding, okay, well, what's mine and what's theirs? What's my value and what's their value? This actually makes me feel a lot of relationship, a lot of re-navigating, changing relationship, changing our own relation to other things. Like, how do we relate to other things? How do we not take in what someone else is going through and still hold that space for them and still be compassionate and still be kind, right? To any moment that feels not fully aligned. Or even if it does feel aligned, if you're with a family member, a friend, or a partner, and needing to stay in the seat of your power, knowing that, okay, they're going to share something with me that might be really intense, that might be a lot for me. I might see something in the news or I might see something outside my external realm, but how can I again find that seat of my power? Especially with that embrace the tree meditation. That's been such an amazing practice for me. So I'm definitely going to be sharing about that practice more on Instagram. If anyone wants to tune in with me there, I am Lynn Love on Instagram as well. So please tune in with me there as I share little practices and I share things that are happening in my life and in the collective as well. So let's keep moving on. So I think that really talks about like relationships, like what's happening in relationships right now, what's happening in life, and how can we sit with those things and be kind of in this contemplative mode about, okay, do I really want that thing to go this way, or do I really visualize it going this way, and like what does it feel like in my body if I did go in that direction? And so this is very much about we're receiving these bits of information all around us. So how can we sit with what we learn and stay true to ourselves, stay true to what we're meant to create? Woo! Sorry about that. I sneezed. So yeah, staying true to what we learn. And this card is very much about being able to take in information and kind of sit with it, kind of play with it, and kind of think, okay, here's that, there's this, like there's these little things that are happening, this is what I'm feeling. The Ace of Wands is going to represent how we can tune into the higher aspect of ourselves And this higher aspect of ourselves is always available. Pisces season, this makes so much sense. This just feels right as I'm talking about this. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Pisces wants to unite with other forms of itself. Water is the one element that wants to combine with other versions of itself, right? And so when we take Pisces and we take the water element and we understand that, okay, in fact, it wants to unite with another aspect of itself. This is, in fact, your higher self that's moving through you that wants to unite with itself. So just taking that in for a moment and understanding what that really means for you. And that might come with breaking down some structures and breaking down some patterns and breaking down some things that just like no don't serve us, like relationships or jobs or things. And like, yeah, as we're moving into the full moon in Virgo, Saturn entering into Pisces, it's really about learning to be discerning. It's really about being discerning. It's really about being discerning. It's really about understanding that Saturn is here to teach us to come back into alignment with all things and all other people and to think about others before we do things. Because Saturn in Aquarius is so much about, okay, this person has their world, this person has their world, I'm going to be in my own world, and that feels right, and creating the structures for that to happen. Saturn in Pisces is about, let's create the structures for people to remember each other and embrace one another in the and all forms of what that is. So thank you everyone for coming on and tuning in with me about Pisces season, the water element, all the things that I shared, and also talking about healing the mythic archetypes of you. And I'm going to be continuing doing these live streams and happy to hold space, have anyone share their questions, have me answer their questions using tarot, using astrology, using the 5 elements. And I'm here to hold that space. This is really what lights me up. I love talking. You can obviously tell. I love being able to help people in what they're going through. And I'm here to create that as well. So thank you everyone that has tuned in with me. Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone that has tuned in with me on YouTube Live as well. You can follow me at I am Lynn Love on TikTok, Instagram, and you can go to my website, linembodied.com, to tune in with me and get a reading, and so we can dive deeper from there. Don't feel afraid to reach out, and I'm super excited to continue to share. Thanks so much, everyone.